Morning, everybody, and welcome to this Thursday morning webinar. I'm Chloe Tetro, the coaching lead here with Ready Care. For this morning, we're going to be looking at what is a hangover. If you're like me and you've ever Googled the words, can you die from a hangover? You might find this morning interesting. So basically, it's looking at why it leaves us feeling drained, foggy, anxious, that kind of feeling, the fear, I call it, and then depending where you are in the country, you might call it something else. I think anxiety is another one. It's just too long a word for me. So it can make us feel worse for wear. So this morning is just going to look at the different facets of it beyond just the dehydration aspect. That does play into it, but it's not the be all and end all of what is happening in the body. So we'll have a quick old sconce at why it feels awful based on a little bit of backing with it. So I suppose starting, so the first one really is actually a blood sugar crash. So if you've ever found yourself waking up feeling shaky, trembly, wanting and desiring specific foods like dry toast, pizza, pasta, things that you might usually go, or do you know what, I could take them or leave them. The morning after the night before, one can feel really the alcohol's effects on the liver. So when you drink, your liver prioritizes breaking down ethanol, so that's the alcohol, because it's seen as a toxin, because I suppose it is. That suppresses another of the liver's job, which is gluconeogenesis, or producing glucose from stores. So this also applies if you're somebody that's looking to lose weight and you are ticking along fairly nicely on the day in, day out, and then come the weekend, you say, look, I know I went out for a few drinks, but I've been steadily losing weight. I haven't really eaten. I did have the cravings for the carbs, but I said, nope, not going to do it. I have scrambled egg or something in reserve for this very occasion. And come Monday, you weigh yourself and you say, jeepers, what's happening? I thought I would have lost a little bit more weight here. What's the story? So the story is that essentially where your liver would have usually helped break down fats for the duration of the time that there's alcohol going through your system, of course, thank you, liver. It's going to prioritize breaking down a toxin rather than just burning off fat. So that is one of the aspects of it. The dehydration of it as well comes in, which we'll chat about in a second. So essentially, once your blood glucose levels fall, particularly overnight, as alcohol is metabolized in the system, your brain and muscles start to feel deprived, start to feel terrible. You might wake up feeling that kind of irritability, weakness, and shakiness. So that's in a crash. So if you're somebody that has one of those always on glucose monitors, you may or may not have noticed that. And if you have, please pop it into the chat section. That essentially there's quite big swings happening with your blood sugars when you've had alcohol. And it could be even low sugar alcohols. It could be things like, some of the things that we would, I was going to say advocate, but maybe that's not the right word. Some options that we would say apart from beer and cider, there we go, diplomacy is coming out and winning. Things like spirits with diet drinks, spirits with sparkling water, some of the low carb beers that are on the market like Rockshore Light. Even if you've had low carb, if you're somebody that has a blood sugar monitor, that's where those swings in the blood sugars are coming in. So if we're your brain inflammation, so that's why you feel foggy. So alcohol triggers an inflammatory response, not just in the liver, but also in your brain. So research shows that alcohol activates immune signaling molecules called cytokines in the central nervous system. So your brain is connected to your central nervous system, and it's basically stimulating or activating immune signaling molecules called cytokines. So have you ever heard of a cytokine storm? That is when somebody has a massive inflammatory condition. So little cytokine lads basically are your inflammatory markers. So this low level neuroinflammation, right, that's caused by the alcohol, interferes with communication between neurons, which contributes to your poor memory, poor concentration, and mental fatigue during a hangover. So it's basically your brain not really doing its job, firing off loads of inflammatory markers, and that's getting in the way of the signals passing between your neurons. And you need that signal to be passing fairly well to be firing on all cylinders. And obviously, you're not when you're having a hangover. So next part is disrupted sleep. So it's very, very common as a myth that alcohol helps you sleep. Now, while it does help you to fall asleep faster, it really greatly interferes with your REM sleep and slow wave sleep. So those are the parts of your sleep cycle that help to really replenish you, make you feel like you wake up feeling refreshed. So that leaves you with a much, much less restorative sleep overall, because alcohol is disrupting those aspects of the cycle of your sleep. If you're somebody that has a smartwatch or that loves stats and figures about their health being recorded all over the place, you may also have noticed that anytime that you've had alcohol, you're not quite getting the levels of restful sleep that you usually would without it. You're also more prone to waking up more often, sleep more lightly, and feel less refreshed, even after a full night in bed. So it's very, very common for a bounce back effect to happen, basically, where that initial drowsiness, there's a bounce back, levering out effect that happens in the body. The body loves balance, right? So anytime that there's a high in one, usually it tries to balance it out with the other. So there's a bounce back effect that happens with that initial falling asleep, easier drowsiness, where bing, you wake up. And it's very common for a lot of people, myself included, unfortunately, to wake up at about 5 a.m. after a few drinks, and that's it. Bing, you're wide awake. There's no getting back to sleep after that. If you're somebody that suffers from that, that's exactly what's happening here. It's that bounce back effect. So bam, that my graph that absolutely did not make it over in one piece. So what's happening with this graph, you might ask? I might ask the same thing. So alcohol is a diuretic. So this is the dehydration / electrolyte imbalance that actually could be anything. They look like two wheelie bins, actually, more than anything else. So it suppresses vasopressin, the hormone that helps your kidneys to retain water. This leads to increased urination, right? We have the lovely saying in Ireland: if you've broken the seal, where you'll go to the loo. Once you've gone, you're going every half hour. So that's what's happening there. It leads to increased urination and loss of electrolytes. Your electrolytes: magnesium, sodium, and potassium. So why are they important? Because essentially, right, hang on, I'll get rid of my wheelie bin graph there a second. If you've ever done a run, a cycle, exercise, had a night out, right, what you're doing is you're losing electrolytes. Or if you've had a period of time where you're very dehydrated, you've been sick, you've had a vomiting bug, you lose what are called electrolytes. And they're your three kind of component parts: your sodium, potassium, magnesium. They help to tell your body that you are hydrated. So you could be drinking water to beat the band, but if you're not getting your sodium, potassium, magnesium, your body is reading that as we're still dehydrated, we're still dehydrated, we're still dehydrated. So as a tendency to happen is actually your body will hold on to water weight because it's saying, well, we need these because it's, we're dehydrated. So even mild dehydration can cause headaches, fatigue, dizziness, dry mouth. It can also cause cramping in the calf muscles specifically. So if you're like me, unfortunately, not only are you waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, but you're waking up with a cramp in your leg and a groggy head and a head full of regrets. So combined with the other effects of alcohol, dehydration amplifies the feeling of being unwell. So we know how dangerous being dehydrated is. If you think of a super, super hot country, you've been sweating. Sweating does the same thing. You're losing electrolytes. What happens there? Feeling shaky, potentially, fainting. All of these different things can happen in the mix. Now, where weight loss is concerned, this also comes into play because not only has your liver decided, hold up the show here, we're not going to burn fat, we're going to actually get rid of this toxin out of our system first, and then we'll come back to what you want to do with it. Not only is this happening where there's a pause in your weight loss, but added to that, you also have water retention. So it's very common. Sorry, my cat just after jumping up here, please go away. You're not welcome. No, you are, but just not right now. What happens as well is with that increased water retention, if you were to go weigh yourself on Monday, even though you've been as good as absolute gold all weekend with your food, you have a pause in your fat burning and you have the additional water weight, right? So that water weight will weigh as your will weigh as you weigh yourself. As you weigh yourself, it's going to basically bring your weight up ever so slightly. So it's very common on a Monday, even a Tuesday. It can take up to 3 days for that to come back down again, to have a little additional weight after you've had a few drinks. So don't worry too much if that's the case. More often than not, by Wednesday, that will all flush out of your system. If you make sure that you're having potassium, magnesium, sodium-rich foods, a great source of potassium is not bananas, as most people think. But actually, bacon, if you're a meat eater, has more sodium and potassium thrown in the mix. Magnesium you're going to find from dark chocolate, nuts, green leafies, which I know aren't really what you'd be craving, but they're, you can put a bit of salt on some nuts, have those a little snack for yourself. So nervous system jitters, my absolute fave. So nervous system stress, anxiety, what I call capital F, the fear. You're basically alcohol temporarily, thank goodness, depresses your nervous system while you drink. We've all heard alcohol is a depressant, right? But you go, I don't know what you're talking about. I feel great. But after the fact, it depresses your nervous system. As it wears off, your body responds by releasing stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, because it's going, whoa, what's happening here? It's another rebound effect. It leaves a lot of people feeling jittery, anxious, and frankly, a bit depressed. And that is as a direct result of your body trying to level out by releasing stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Now, cortisol and adrenaline, they get a fairly bad rap because most of the time they feel terrible, let's be honest. But just because they feel bad doesn't mean they are bad. So basically what they do is the inverse. They hyper arouse your nervous system, which basically means you're on it. You're on it. Sometimes to a point that you don't want to be on it, but they basically bring your system back up again. So if you're in a high stress situation and you need to be functioning at a very high level, your body will naturally release cortisol and naturally release adrenaline. The two of those get released naturally every single day when you wake up anyway. So your body is trying, God bless it, it's trying to get you out of the spiral on the rock and the hole and whoa. But the felt effect of that is not only do you feel bad, but now you're anxious about everything. And what our brain does is this lovely capacity of backtracking, where instead of just saying, I feel stressed because I remember your one was talking about adrenaline and cortisol being released. We don't do that. We'll say, I feel stressed, I wonder why. And that's been the downfall of many a human, where basically instead of just saying, I feel a particular way, maybe it's a physiological effect. We start to attach reasons to it, because we'll go, well, I don't like the fact that I don't know why I feel anxious. Let's go back over every single interaction. Jeepers, I was a bit friendly with that person. I'm the worst person in the world. That's exactly why I should feel bad, because I told them, a semi-personal story about myself. These things are physiological. Don't fall in the trap, which I know is absolutely pointless to say. But just if you can't remember anything, that big fear comes from attaching a story backwards to why we feel a certain way. So don't fall in the trap as best as possible with it, which I know is very difficult. Right. So that's all well and good. What can I do to feel better, you might ask? So if you do choose to drink, here are some few ideas that can help to get you right back on your feet again. So remember the electrolytes. They're the main thing, really. They're the thing that are going to help you the most, I believe. So firstly, eat before and while drinking. If you're somebody following a low-carb diet, I'm going to take the screen off here because I need to sound like I'm being very serious, because I am. If you're following a low-carb diet, be careful, because alcohol will hit you harder. I say this with 8 years down my belt, well, actually nearly 9 now, of being low carb and just thinking I was an absolute lightweight all of a sudden when I started. But just mind yourself, and that's us taking, little, what would you call that? There's a word for it that's gone out of my head, but basically minding people, because I would advocate low carb quite a bit, but just to be mindful, alcohol will hit you harder if you're low carb. Cheap date, happy times. But just to be mindful of that and make sure that you're eating before and during, or even, the late night trip to the chipper, all good. So balanced, rich meal rich in protein, sorry, I beg your pardon, and healthy fats slow the alcohol absorption and supports blood sugar stability. So making sure that you've had something prior to going out that is high in good fats will basically slow the alcohol hitting your system. Hydrate before, during, and after. Aim for at least 1 glass of water for every alcoholic drink, and include electrolytes before bed and the next morning. Your past self looking after your present and future self. Like if you wake up to a glass of electrolytes, you're going to just absolutely fall in love with yourself so much. They're going to hugely, hugely, hugely help with a hangover. Your liver can only metabolize about roughly a unit per hour. So drinking faster will overwhelm your system. Now, that's a kind of thing that is said, but of course, when the night gets away with most people, they absolutely don't care about that. But let it be said that that's usually the amount, is 1 unit per hour. So just be mindful, specifically if you have somewhere to go, places to drive, or anything like that the following day, and calculate the amount of drinks that you're having based on how well your body is going to do break it down. Prioritizing your sleep, give yourself an early night and plan for recovery the next day. I would say definitely plan for recovery the next day. If you cannot give yourself an early night, daytime nap can help to restore some of the sleep debt. And gentle movement, nutritious foods, and more fluids the next day will help your body to rebalance faster. So prioritize sodium-rich foods, magnesium-rich foods, so they're your dark leafies, and even if that's in a soup, right? If you can't, I don't expect people to start cooking a big old Thai curry or anything like that. But the foods that will help most are foods high in sodium, magnesium, potassium. I read something recently, and I don't have any evidence back for it. This was literally a pop-up on my social media that said that the proven best food to have, it's like everybody holds their breath, the proven best food to have to alleviate a hangover is coconut water with pineapple and lime, right? And that sounds absolutely delicious. Coconut water is a natural source of electrolytes. So that's why people have it after, I think, hot yoga studios used to hand it out like the new time. It's because anytime that you sweat, you're losing electrolytes. Coconut water replenishes your electrolytes. And then in the lime and the coconut and the lime and the pineapple, you're going to get magnesium and potassium. So that's a great drink to have, a little juice to have on hand. Bacon's another great source. It's an absolutely delightful breakfast that you're having now. So I hope you found this helpful. Hangovers aren't just being tired or dehydrated. It's your body basically just managing a multi-system attack, going from your brain to your liver to your whole entire system. It's clearing toxins, stabilizing your blood sugars, it's calming inflammation, rehydrating, and restoring a nervous system imbalance. So do remember that if you are feeling the fear, don't fall in the trap of looking for reasons. Just remember the fact that I said adrenaline, cortisol, bam, will come up. Watch something soothing, for goodness sake, and hopefully you don't have any really stressful events to do the following day, right? I hope you found this helpful. That's me done for today. If you have any questions, comments, please do pop them in the chat section. Always love to hear from people, so I know I'm not speaking out into the ether. Have a lovely rest of your day, and we will chat to you next week. Bye now. Come down here now, you little devil.